We're an island nation, drawn to the sea that surrounds us. A playground for some. For others, it's where they make their living. But the sea's unpredictable.
The sea is a scary place. It's an unforgiving place.
There to save our lives is a volunteer army of over 5,000 ordinary people, ready to leave their jobs, their families, and race to our rescue.
When that pager goes off, it's like that.
There they are! There they are!
You are somebody's last hope.
He's gone under!
I have never felt so much admiration. Marvel heroes don't come anywhere near.
Equipped with their own cameras.
Am I recording? Yep.
The crews give us a unique insight into every call-out, as only they see it.
Gonna get you home, all right?
For those who risk their lives, it has become a way of life.
There's no better feeling than knowing that you've brought someone's loved one home safely.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
Hold on!
As the most easterly settlement in mainland Scotland, Peterhead faces directly onto the North Sea.
It's a friendly town. I came to Peterhead for a long weekend about 20-odd years ago, and I'm still here. The fishing community is close-knit.
Peterhead's, certainly with the fishing industry, we are the biggest whitefish port in Europe.
Every year, an average of 55,000 tonnes of fish are brought into Peterhead by a fleet working far out in the North Sea. So the station's Tamar class is regularly taken to the edge of its capabilities.
The patch here is substantially greater than other places. I think our range is roughly about 125 miles.
The North Sea itself can be a very, very rough sea.
We go out east into the wilds. The weather can change so quickly. If you catch that wrong in a storm, you can find yourself in big trouble.
A cold and windy afternoon in February. 43-year-old Patrick, recently qualified as a coxswain, heads down to the shoreline to check the conditions.
And I said to myself, yeah, well, I want to get my first shout as coxswain under my belt. I don't want it today.
A gale is coming in, bringing large breaking swells to the coast.
My flat overlooks the harbour. I happened to look out the bathroom window, and I seen that Jacqueline Ann was towing in the Opportunist.
10 hours earlier, a local fishing boat, the Opportunist, had lost power 40 miles northeast of Peterhead with a crew of 5 on board. The skipper radioed the Jacqueline Ann, which was fishing in the same waters.
It was about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I got a call from the Opportunist that he requested a tow because he had propeller problems. Got a tow into him. We put across our wire, but there was a lot of swell.
Every time the 170-ton Opportunist rises and falls at a different height to the Jacqueline Ann, the tow line is placed under enormous pressure.
About 2 miles from Peterhead, we noticed he was shearing back and forth. One time would be starboard side, one side, port side. And when approaching Peterhead, maybe quarter a mile, the tow line snapped.
The fishing boats are now so close to the shore that bystanders are able to film the incident on their mobile phones.
Probably the worst possible place it could have broke. By that time, you're into the backwash from the harbour, plus the swell coming into the harbour. He was so close to the rocks, and once the wire broke, he was helpless.
Watching the incident unfold, the lifeboat crew ready themselves for a call.
When I seen the tow break from my bathroom window, the conditions were that severe, they were just bobbing about like a cork. And I said, I think the Peterhead Lifeboat's going to get a shout. And the words hadn't come out of my mouth and the pager went off. It I wondered if we'd even have time to get the lifeboat out because it was that close to breakwater.
With the stricken fishing boat now just 50 metres from the rocks, the crew launched their all-weather Tamar class, with freshly qualified coxswain Patrick at the helm.
The atmosphere was very tense. With this being my first shout as coxswain, the crew must have been a bit concerned because they hadn't seen me handle the vessel in such close proximity to so many hazards.
Fear's just pure adrenaline. All you want to do is get to the scene as quick as possible.
There was a silence, just praying that everything was going to go well.
3 minutes after launching, the lifeboat arrives on scene.
The first time I saw the boat, I was astounded how close he was to the rocks and the breakwater.
That's when it really did hit home. This is serious.
If I'd been in the Opportunist that night, I would have been feeling very helpless and very scared. I think the boat would have hit the rocks, and if any of the people went into the water, they would have been smashed to death.
That size of vessel getting tossed about the way she was, yeah, it's a sight to behold.
With the light fading fast, the crew ready a tow rope on the stern deck, while Patrick prepares to maneuver the lifeboat close enough to the Opportunist to attempt a line throw.
When we approached the vessel, the waves and swell coming through were probably in excess of 8 metres. We were turning to starboard and the boat took quite a violent roll, and my heart's in my mouth because I've got these guys out on deck trying to get these ropes ready.
Everything was against you. There was nothing easy about conditions. It's just like a maelstrom of confused sea.
As coxswain Patrick fights to hold the lifeboat in position, he radios his crew.
Patrick had told us, he says, we'll get one shot at this, and one shot only. If we miss this time, that's it. We've seen there was 3 or 4 crew members on the stem of the Opportunist, ready to catch a line.
Turned the boat round, went across our bow.
They went down with a wave and we kind of got picked up by a wave. At that point, I threw the line across. Praying was an understatement to say, please let this get aboard.
Fantastic throw. And a fantastic catch by the crew. I got the thumbs up from the skipper. That's us connected. Go for it.
The tow line may be attached, but the crew of the Opportunist aren't out of danger yet. The lifeboat now needs to tow the 78-foot-long fishing boat into the safety of the harbour.
The Opportunist is a vessel probably 4 times the size of the lifeboat. Certainly 4 times the weight. Nothing was happening. We were still getting pulled back. Ended up using full power in the engines, which isn't good when you've got a tow line out. Fortunately, she started to creep forward, but we still had to get back in through the pier heads.
Just because the tow is established, that doesn't mean the rescue's complete. And when your 2 vessels are dipping and rising at different times, my biggest fear was the rope was going to break and we were never going to get a second chance.
There's definitely a very, very good potential of the rope snapping again.
Despite the vast strain it's taking, the Tamar's tow line seems to be holding. And Patrick is able to haul the fishing vessel away from the rocks.
We ended up sort of just running along with the swell. Although it was very uncomfortable, it minimised some of the snatch.
Just 10 minutes after launching, Patrick brings the Opportunist into the calmer waters of Peterhead Harbour.
Once we were past the tows over to the local harbour boats, yeah, that's when I could start to breathe. There was just this silence between the crew. We're all sort of staring at each other. We all knew, we were like, wow, that was close. We had the skipper from the Opportunist. He was on the radio thanking us, couldn't have thanked us enough. It was humbling to hear him on the radio.
Once we started getting towed and we was out of danger, just the adrenaline just came out you, and almost onto my knees with joy, I suppose. You know what I mean? It was just all the weight that was lifted off your shoulders.
Experienced trawler skipper Jimmy and his crew of 4 had been fishing for cod and haddock near the Shetland Islands when the boat's engine failed.
We was just drifting, no drive, and then just below we seen a Jacqueline on coming in. So I spoke to Adam, and he decided to tow us in.
40 miles from Peterhead, the wind picked up to 30 miles an hour, and with that, the sea swell increased dramatically.
More things can go wrong if there's bigger waves, bigger swell, things can break.
And sure as fate, the next big wave, bang, the towing wire parted. And I knew there was only one way we was going, and that was up the back of the breakwater, right onto the rocks.
Now in serious danger of running aground, the boats frantically attempted to reattach the tow.
We got probably 4 ropes aboard, but every time they just broke. The crew was in the forefront of my mind. He was definitely worried about that. They'd already had on life jackets, but the swell in at the rocks, it might have been a problem. Then I seen the lifeboat, hope came into me, but until that rope was on the boat, anything could have happened.
Despite the tow lines repeatedly snapping, the skipper of the Jacqueline Ann had done just enough to keep Jimmy and his crew off the rocks until the lifeboat arrived.
Adam did excellent, he kept coming in. If it hadn't been for that, it would have been very, very close.
They were helpless, so we had to try and do our best to get hold of him and try and get him off the rocks.
Fortunately, first-time coxswain Patrick and his crew secured the tow within a minute of arriving on scene.
The seamanship on the coxswain was outstanding.
Hugely impressed with the skills of the coxswain and the crew of the lifeboat to get a line across first time.
You wouldn't have got 2 chances. Once we knew we were safe inside the harbour, could hardly stand.
There is this massive relief that came over each and every one of us.
The coxswain, the sculls, and Benny's first shout, he did extremely well.
There was no time to be nervous. I think training kicked in, adrenaline, knowing it was so time critical. Yeah, all that nervousness had to go to the side. I had to be 100% focused.
His seamanship was outstanding. His calmness under pressure, because he was under a lot of pressure.
What a baptism. Just absolutely, he did brilliantly.
But without the team, I'm only one person, I'm steering the boat. We all needed to come together as one. And yeah, we did come together as one that day.
The crew in the coxswain at lifeboat saved 5 folk.
Patrick may have impressed on his first shout as coxswain. But for the lifeboat volunteers, this level of seamanship doesn't come without hundreds of hours of training, much of which takes place at the RNLI College in Poole on the south coast.
There's a lot to do before you get your shot at your first shout. Lots of training.
Okay, get yourself right to the edge. Looking at the top of the window, step forward.
We've got the RNLI training system, which can bring the complete novice up to being a helm.
Get ready with a throw line, guys, okay?
As a helmsman on a lifeboat, you get trained to make decisions.
You can train for general situations, you can train in casualty care.
What's that, pal?
Little finger.
You've lost your little finger?
Most of it on there, yeah.
That's all right, no worries at all.
You can train in navigating, which is fantastic because obviously not many people now are from a maritime background.
But even with the best training available, a first shout can still be a leap into the unknown.
It's a bit of a nerve-wracking thing. You don't really know what to expect.
Female appear to be drifting with the tide of it.
You're wondering what you're going to. Once you're on your way, then you can start thinking about how you're going to actually do the job.
Can you stand? We're approaching slow.
You have that secondary feeling of actually someone's in trouble now and I've got to go and do this, and that's a massive feeling of responsibility.
That very first day felt like my very first day at school. It was quite nerve-wracking, but also it was just unbelievable. An experience like I'd never had before.
Your first shout is always the biggest milestone to get under your belt. You know that the people trust you, you've earned the trust of other people, or you wouldn't be going out there.
Many first shouts are routine, but some place a new crew member in a genuinely challenging situation. The United Kingdom's smallest city, St David's, lies in Pembrokeshire in southwest Wales.
St David's is a beautiful piece of coastline. It has so much to offer. There's lots of quiet little bays, and we have some amazing islands.
The beach is absolutely gorgeous. It's almost like a small cove of paradise.
The local cliffs are also a big attraction for outdoor sports enthusiasts.
We get a lot of people coming down and climbing along the coastline.
There's a great variety in climbs that they can do, but the thought of being suspended more than 10 metres above a hard floor is not that appealing to me.
One of the newer members of the crew, Emma, can usually be found in the fields above the cliffs. Up here is the farm where she's worked for the last 6 years.
We have a lot of calves each year, so my main role started off as being the calf rearer, feeding them and making sure they're healthy and happy.
So this one's just been born. Mist is coming in, so it's a little bit chilly. So I'm just going to put a jacket on him or her, make sure they're nice and warm.
Similar kind of stuff to the lifeboat. It's really hands-on work, and you do have to get in there sometimes, get dirty, get stinky. A lot of the time it's to save a little calf's life.
There you go.
I like to be hands-on with things. I don't mind rolling my sleeves up and getting involved in things like that, whether it be animals or humans.
Late August. A brisk southwesterly wind is whipping up the Irish Sea.
It was a nice sunny August day, but it was a big sea, so there was a lot of swell.
I was walking back home and my pager was going off, so just made best speed straight away down to the lifeboat station.
A climber has fallen into the sea from a cliff near Carrickfran, just southwest of St David's.
There is no question about it. They could be an Olympic swimmer, it doesn't matter. You're in the Irish Sea, it's cold. It's definitely as urgent as it gets.
For volunteer Emma, this is her very first shout.
I'd been on the crew now for about 4 months. Felt like I was prepared, felt like I was ready for a shout. It was like feeling of, yeah, this is it. There is excitement there, apprehension, just trying to remain calm and remember everything you'd learnt in your training.
St David's launched their Tamar-class all-weather lifeboat immediately. Carrickfran isn't far from St David's by road, but for the lifeboat, it's a journey of nearly 3 nautical miles around the headland.
It's a pretty remote little stretch of coastline. There's no beach, there's no way out there. You're climbing up a cliff, basically, to get out.
While the Tamar powers out to sea, the crew prepare for a complicated shout.
The rise and fall in the water, especially around the rocks, would have been between 5 and 6 metres. And Yeah, I guess I personally was thinking ahead to what we were going to be going into. Your brain can work overtime. Are we going out to somebody that is alive? You don't know how you're going to react. So, yeah, you're just trying to keep calm.
After a 10-minute journey, the crew arrive at the cliffs. But they can't see the casualty.
The sea was that rough that day that looking for a person in the water without eyes on could be difficult. You're looking for a head. That's something that's sticking maybe 8 to 12 inches out of the water.
The climber has now been in the swells for 3/4 of an hour. Throughout this period, the tide has been coming in, bringing with it cold water from far out in the Irish Sea. The water temperature is now just 12 degrees. In these conditions, there are potentially just minutes left before the casualty falls unconscious.
Can you see anything or not?
No. I had the binoculars out and I was just scanning near the cliffside. Oh yeah, I've got an eye on her. It didn't really look any different to a lobster pot buoy, but I could see her arms. See?
Okay, yeah, straight in front of them.
Straight ahead of her, there.
It was barely her head above the water. You could see she was completely drained of energy and she desperately needed help quickly.
Just like, we got to get somebody with her now. So I just left the upper steering position and I just jumped straight off the front of the boat. When I started swimming towards her, I looked up. I've never seen somebody so frightened or traumatised.
Harley, you're going to need to get in the water with me. I think it's not going to stretcher.
Okay. So I jumped in the water with Will.
Stay flat because I think I'm worried she might, because she's so cold, she might go unconscious.
That's fine. She looked terrified, she was shaking, so I kept trying to reassure her that everything was going to be okay. What's your name? Can you tell me your name? Becky?
She was shaking uncontrollably, slurred speech. I was thinking she was also seriously hypothermic.
I actually noticed her clothing, shorts and a vest top, so I could only imagine how cold she actually was.
And I've never seen somebody look so pale.
Keep your legs up, lovely.
Because she was so exhausted, I was worried about her having a sudden drop in blood pressure.
Will's concerned that transferring the casualty to the lifeboat may be risky because of a medical condition called hydrostatic squeeze.
Hydrostatic squeeze is something that can happen to people when they've been in the water for quite some time, and then if they're lifted out in a vertical position, they can get a sudden drop of blood pressure to the head, and it can cause them to black out. And I was genuinely worried about hydrostatic squeeze for Becky. So I thought, yeah, we need to get her out horizontally.
At this stage, it's vital to keep the casualty conscious so the crew can accurately monitor her condition.
Right, we're going to get you into the stretcher now, Becky, okay? Also, we didn't know if she had been thrown against the rocks. We didn't know if she had any spinal injuries, any head injuries. We didn't actually know. We can't do a survey while someone's in the water. There we go. Well done. So we slid the stretcher underneath her and lay her down flat. Right, we've got you, okay? We've got you. And doing that, you have her on a rigid platform. She doesn't move around anymore, so you keep her stable. And then we pushed her up onto the boat.
To try to keep her warm, the crew cover the casualty in a blanket and administer oxygen.
Her breathing was a bit erratic. She was shaking profusely.
These are classic signs of severe hypothermia. And with the cold winds now strengthening, the decision is made to take the casualty into the wheelhouse.
Try and keep it nice and level, guys.
I asked her a few questions. She was really confused. She couldn't remember her name or her age by that point. So the main thing is to get her to hospital as quick as possible.
There we go, we're inside now, so it'll be nice and warm in here, okay?
With the climber's condition worsening, a Coast Guard helicopter has been scrambled with a paramedic team on board.
You're gonna have to get helicoptered on and get you to hospital, okay?
And then a helicopter had been tasked to come and airlift her. I was relieved at that point.
The minute the Coast Guard air rescue team arrive on scene, they attempt to land a winchman on the Tamar's rear deck.
I was on the upper steering position, and I remember looking at it thinking, come on, winchman, we need to get this remote, come on.
By now, though, the wind is gusting over 20 miles an hour and the sea swells have increased significantly.
Because it was a rough day, the rise and fall of the boat made it very difficult for them to be able to send somebody down.
They made 2 attempts to put a winchman onto the aft deck, but because the ground swell was about 3 meters, there was just too much rise and fall to make it safe.
With the helicopter stood down, the crew have no choice but to rush the casualty to shore themselves. But with a rough 15-minute journey ahead, hypothermia is now not the only concern.
Right, you're going to feel it a little bit up and down now, okay? Because she'd been in the water, she'd obviously swallowed a lot of sea water. Doesn't agree with our bodies at all. Right, okay, keep breathing. You're going to be sick. She's thrown up. So she actually ejected it all over me, which was a good sign. We don't want that sitting in her stomach. Do you feel a bit sick? And she did say that she felt better after she had been sick.
If you need to be sick again, let me know. I'll grab that bucket for you.
The journey onto the lifeboat was very much a blur. My whole face was very cold, so it made talking very difficult because my whole lips and mouth were very numb.
Experienced climber Becky had come to Pembrokeshire with her dog Buddy and a friend to tackle the local cliffs.
We'd chosen quite a difficult climb. My friend lowered me down, but very, very quickly the rock went inwards like a caved area. There wasn't any way that he'd be able to pull the rope up with my weight on the end of it. So instead of staying on the rope, I knew that I was going to be jumping into the sea.
Unhooking her harness, Becky dropped 3 meters into the sea below.
The waves were very overpowering and I was unable to stand up in them. As it came crashing over my head, I started screaming to my friend to call for help.
Becky's climbing companion had already called the Coast Guard. But cold and exhausted, she could barely stay afloat.
I'd got to the point where I didn't know whether I was going to survive or not. I was definitely scared of dying. I didn't want to drown. I was worried about my dog. He was at the top of the cliff and I cared a lot about him and I didn't want him to follow me down into the water. My friend started pointing at the horizon and I managed to turn myself around and I could see the boat coming around the corner.
Yeah, I've got a visual on him.
By now, though, Becky had been struggling in the water for nearly 45 minutes.
They still felt like a long way away. I had very, very little left. I was still feeling like that I was still struggling to the point where I might not make it. It was a big sense of relief that I was going to make it and I could finally stop trying. That was such a big relief for me.
An hour and a half after falling from the cliff face, Becky was delivered back to dry land. She was rushed to the waiting Coast Guard helicopter, which took her to a local hospital. There, she was treated for shock and hypothermia.
Buddy was there. They'd managed to drive him over and he was just completely unaware, I think, of the situation and how lucky that I was to still be there. He was just always excited and happy, which I was feeling too.
Back at the lifeboat station, Emma was left to reflect on her dramatic first shout.
All the other crew were saying to me, this is one heck of a shout to start with.
Put it this way, after being on that shout with Emma, I didn't realise it was her first shout until afterwards, but I knew from that moment that I had a really good crewmate.
It'll always be a good story of my first shout and a good outcome, which is the main thing, yeah.
120 miles northeast of St David's is the Victorian seaside town of Clandudno.
Llandudno, it's a lovely town to live in. 2 beaches and a good community here. You know, you can bump into somebody you know every day.
Clandudno itself is a really nice curved bay. It's just a natural beauty spot, really, which brings a lot of people to see the bay itself.
Clandudno may be famed for its wide sandy bay, but beyond that, the landscape soon becomes rugged and wild.
Coastline varies from rocks to cliff faces, hundreds of feet.
Beautiful views from the coast, very rocky, but also very dangerous if you get too close to the edge.
There's been a lifeboat station in Clandudno for 160 years. A new station was built in 2017, which now houses an all-weather Shannon class and a smaller D-class lifeboat. Clandudno lies just 30 miles from the English border, so the lifeboat crew here aren't all locals. Englishman Mike has been a volunteer here for 5 years.
There's a surprisingly high level of non-Welsh on our crew, as it happens, possibly reflecting on the general makeup of Llandudno. There's always a healthy bit of competition between English and Welsh, but yeah, there's never any hard feelings, but maybe a few jokes occasionally.
A warm evening in July. A number of the Clandudno crew are at the lifeboat station.
It was a Monday evening, which is our training night, and we had a farmer pull in a Land Rover, and he informed us that one of his sheep had fallen from the cliffs onto the beach. When he came over and said that the sheep could be hurt, you know, you don't like to see any animal in pain or distress. Of course, being a Welshman, we're always happy to go and rescue a sheep for someone.
We'll go and have a look. See what we can do, yeah?
The RNLI go out to nearly 200 animal-related shouts a year, but will usually only do so if their owners are in danger of putting themselves at risk by attempting a rescue.
We're there to help, whether it's a person, an animal, you know, we'll help it. So we picked the crew, and one of our crew members, Ian, is actually scared of sheep.
Hello.
There's always an ongoing joke, being Welsh, and he's scared of sheep.
We got some gloves, because it's on the beach now, if I grab it.
Oh, you'll be fine.
It's been part of the banter for many years.
You know, there are plenty of one-liners there with him being a Welshman.
Jokes have already started.
So we felt this would be the right time for him to build his confidence and conquer his fear.
Not only is Ian's fear of sheep a bit of a crude joke, this is their first time rescuing one.
Should we go? Might as well. Hello.
The sheep has fallen at Little Orme, a headland approximately a mile northeast of the station.
Peterhead Coast Guard, Llandudno ILB, over.
Clandudno launches its D-class inshore lifeboat, which is well suited to the shallow, rocky waters beneath Little Orme.
We approached the beach, and straight away we could see the sheep lying on the pebbles.
There it is. Where? On the right-hand side of the...
Oh, yeah.
The beaches below Little Orme are narrow and backed by steep cliffs. With the tide rising nearly 20 feet over the next 6 hours, the sheep is unlikely to survive the night.
We were then just talking as to how this would pan out, and Ian initially said with some bravado that he was going to grab the sheep when he got there.
As long as you're not shy about being on camera and feeling a bit sheepy. Be all right.
Then he asked me, did I have any experience of catching sheep? And I said, well, I do, having grown up with a farming family. He said, right, well, you're going to catch it then. And actually, when we got to the beach, Ian, that had been all brave initially, was the one that said, I'll stand here and hold the boat.
Go up that end.
It was moving incredibly quickly. It was running well, and it clearly hadn't worked out that we were there to help.
Although it's moving freely, the sheep is limping. The crew must catch it soon before it becomes too distressed.
What could possibly go wrong here?
There is a moment where it was running towards me, and I probably could have grabbed it, but yeah, quickly got past me. I'm sure there'll be lots of jokes, because I used to play rugby.
You're supposed to cut it off. Not dance with it.
Especially playing for Llandudno first team in the past, you'd have thought he'd have been quite good at catching something running around.
A bit of a Keystone Cops moment for a while.
He's going to come around the bottom, is it? He's coming your way.
We don't actually train for herding sheep. I mean, it is competitively done in Wales, but not by us as a lifeboat crew.
Well, we've got a better chance this end.
It's clear that a third pair of hands is needed. So Ian is forced to overcome that legendary fear of sheep.
Where's Ian? Just give this a big haul up and get 3 of us on it. You ready?
Finally, with the sheep cornered, Mike manages to grab it.
I got you. Got you.
I know those guys quite well, and I think it is a bit of a source of embarrassment to them that an Englishman had to show them how to catch a sheep.
Yeah. You.
Quite surprising that he managed to catch the sheep before a Welshman, but yeah, he did well.
When the sheep fell off the clifftop, the tide was in, so it's likely that it landed in the sea.
Right, turn around so you can see where we're going.
But just to be sure it's okay, the crew run through their usual casualty care.
For the fall that it had fallen well over 100 feet from the cliff face, and so for it to be running around, it wasn't in a bad condition, to be honest with you.
Hello, Billy.
With the casualties stowed in the D-class, Mike offers what comfort he can.
Hey. Hello, Billy.
So, Mike is quite a caring and loving guy. And yeah, he managed to sort of calm the sheep. He was almost like a sheep whisperer, if you like.
You're right, Lee. Yeah.
As ever, we always try and reassure our casualties to make sure that they're calm and feeling as safe as they can in a boat. So this is no exception.
Hello, Lily.
Just a calming voice to keep it from being too distressed.
He kept it very still and kept it calm all the way up until when we got it back on the beach.
OK. No, we've finished.
Just 15 minutes after being alerted to the sheep's plight, the crew deliver it back to the farmer.
We met with the farmer, and he was very grateful, very thankful, because obviously this is part of his livelihood.
With the casualty now safe, novice sheep rescuer Ian needn't fear these beasts anymore.
Yeah, probably one of the oddest shouts I've been on, yeah. Definitely different, anyway.
You could tell he was still a bit nervous in approaching the sheep. But he was very grateful that, you know, obviously he had the opportunity to sort of help try and sort of conquer his fear of the sheep.
Nestled on the western end of Somerset's coast is the small resort town of Minehead.
Minehead is the tourist capital of Somerset. It's got the beach, it's got the moors, and it's got Butlins.
You got the beach and you got the hills, and you know it feels like a nice sort of safe little community, I guess.
But while Minehead's sheltered bay is often calm, the waters just offshore are notoriously dangerous.
Bristol Channel's got a very high tidal range, and what that means is the tide goes out a long way and comes in a long way. And for that to happen, it means that the tide is moving very fast, so you get some very strong currents.
The sea is very unpredictable around here. One state, it could be flat calm. You go around the corner, there's short, choppy waves that can hit you any direction, so you'll be thrown about all over the place.
Over the years, the treacherous conditions in the Bristol Channel have caused hundreds of shipwrecks. One particular wreck was instrumental in the establishment of the town's lifeboat station.
We've got a lifeboat here at Minehead because of a famous incident called the Overland Launch.
In January 1899, the 280-foot, 2,000-ton Forest Hall foundered in bad weather at Porlock Weir, 7 nautical miles east along the coast. On board was an 18-strong crew.
The nearest lifeboat was at Lynmouth at the time, but it was too rough to launch. So the lifeboat crew decided, no, we can do this, we just can't launch at Lynmouth.
In a remarkable act of determination, Lynmouth's crew rallied the townsfolk and 18 horses to haul the 10-ton lifeboat Louisa to Porlock Weir. This 13-mile-long journey across Exmoor included a climb up a formidable 1,400-foot-high hill.
So they dragged the lifeboat up over Porlock Hill, and if anybody's ever been there, you'll know how hard that is.
It's a hell of a hill between Lynmouth and Porlock.
I don't know how they did it, pulling it up the hill.
The crew finally made it to Porlock Weir at 6:30 a.m. Although exhausted by their 11-hour overnight journey, they immediately launched the lifeboat. It then took them a full hour of rowing in huge seas to reach the stricken vessel.
Rowing out instead of having a motored engine, they were probably very, very fit.
Thanks to the heroism of the lifeboat men, all 18 crew members of the Forest Hall survived. This still stands as one of the most challenging feats in the RNLI's history.
Remarkable story, fantastic willpower to do something like that. At some point along the way, they reviewed it and thought actually it'd be quite handy to have a lifeboat at Minehead. So we've had a lifeboat station here since 1901.
Since the lifeboat station was established, the Minehead crews have launched over 1,000 times. But these days, a large number of their shouts are to water sports enthusiasts.
On a flat day, you'll see loads of paddleboarders out. Sea swimming's got big recently. Kayakers as well. There's always kayakers around.
Across the country, shouts to paddleboarders and kayakers have nearly doubled in the last year.
So kayaks have changed over the years. You sit on kayaks, they sit a little bit higher in the water, and they're quite prone to be blown by the wind, and they're quite easy to fall off of as well. And there's a bit of a technique to getting back onto them.
Early September. It's been a warm, calm day. But as evening approaches, an offshore breeze is picking up.
I had just come back into the house. Next thing I know, the page is going off. Instead of coming in through the back door, I'm running out the front door.
It was evening and it was just beginning to get dark.
2 kayakers are reported missing off Porlock Weir, the same location as the 1899 rescue. Ordinarily, the 7-mile journey would be easy for the station's 2 inshore lifeboats.
The weather was calm. It was a nice summer's evening. And with the evening that it was, we were thinking, it will be a quick pick 'em up sort of job.
The weather conditions may seem good, but in autumn, night draws in quickly on this stretch of coast.
Darkness makes a whole world of difference out there. It's very easy to become disorientated. So, obviously, we wanted to get there as quickly as possible.
Milford Haven Coast Guard, this is Minehead Lifeboat number 2, over. What's your number?
Both the station's lifeboats are launched, the D-Class and the larger, faster Atlantic 85.
Roger on.
Matt has been on the crew since he was 17, but tonight is a new experience for him.
I was thinking this was my first shout in the dark, so I need to up my game. This is going to be very different to what it's like in the daytime.
Torches down there, Matt.
We do a lot of practicing at night just because it is so difficult. Every job on the boat it makes harder. Even just sort of finding a torch is difficult.
Got it? It's over there, mate.
Navigation is very difficult because it all looks the same.
I was feeling nervous, but I knew inside that I had to be focused on what I was doing and just listen to my helm.
15 minutes after launching, both lifeboats arrive at Porlock Weir, but they're now trying to locate the missing kayakers in total darkness.
As soon as we started searching, the light completely disappeared and it became absolutely pitch black.
You had lights out the side of the boat to try and locate these kayakers. Every wave that you hit, the light just illuminates the spray and then you're blind for that split second. It felt like actually there's, a strong possibility we're not going to locate them.
Porlock Bay is 3 miles wide and scarcely populated. There are very few lights on the shore to illuminate these waters.
I was now getting quite concerned. It became very apparent that this was looking for a needle in a haystack for us.
The tension was high. We were thinking, what's our next move?
I was worried for them because, you know, I could rapidly see this becoming not a nice situation.
Sorry? Yeah.
To make their search even more complex, the wind has picked up, churning up the waters in the bay.
I was slightly taken aback when we got to Porlock Bay. You know, the wind hit us full in the face, and we were then presented with a very short, nasty, confused sea.
The sea state definitely wasn't suitable for kayaking.
And that's when I actually started to think, oh, this is a very different job to what I was anticipating. Let's hope we can find them very soon. Yeah.
The Coast Guard updates the crews with the kayakers' last reported location. But the darkness, the offshore wind and the strong currents of the Bristol Channel may all be working against this data.
We had a lat and long position and a direction adrift from the Coast Guard. But if the information's old, then, you know, it becomes less and less reliable.
The lifeboat crews have now been searching these waters for nearly 10 minutes. But there's no sign of the missing kayakers. Another update comes through over the radio. A Coast Guard rescue helicopter has been scrambled from St Arthur, South Wales, 15 miles away across the Bristol Channel.
Helicopter's coming as well.
Coast Guard helicopter, they've got so much more ability to find people than we have, especially at night.
Can you talk to the helicopter?
They've got the height, they've got the much bigger angle of view. They've also got thermal imaging cameras, so they're looking for changes in temperature as well.
Just 4 minutes after the helicopter arrives on scene, its crew radios in. They've sighted the casualties over a mile further out to sea from where the Minehead crews had expected them to be.
Go to that torch.
We could see the helicopter hovering, bright light shining down on this confused sea.
Rescue 187, this is Minehead Lifeboat number 2, en route to your torch, over.
But even with the helicopter's searchlight, the choppy conditions make it challenging for the lifeboats to locate the kayakers.
Okay, go to that torch. Can't see him yet. No, not yet. Follow that torch. No! Yeah, then, fly off the bow! Go, go, go! Right, port side. You're going to jump down onto it.
Half an hour after the pagers went off, the two kayakers are finally found.
There was two guys there clinging on to one another, and you're thinking they must be cold out at sea at night.
Both kayaks been rafted together, so I'm thinking, thank goodness for that. Obviously, sticking together was a very sensible option.
It was a relief to see them together because you're not finding one and then sending another boat out to look for the other one.
Milford, Minehead Lifeboat number 1, over.
They looked relieved to be rescued. They were middle of the bay, so that can be 2 miles. It was a long way out.
Milford, Minehead Lifeboat number 1, over.
It was clearly the wind that was taking them. You know, they were in a completely different place.
Thank you so much. Have you got a life jacket, mate?
I just remember being so grateful for them. They're coming to get us.
Right, we need life jackets on them.
Your mind races about what could happen, but once we saw them, it was almost like that relief that we're going to be saved. Like, it's only a matter of time now, so.
How you doing, chaps? Are you cold?
Yeah, cold, but thank you so much.
Milford, Minehead Lifeboat.
24-year-old Ronan had been enjoying a family get-together on Porlock Weir Beach when he decided to go kayaking with his two cousins, Ben and Jack.
It was beautiful. When we were out on the water, it was nice. It wasn't cold at all. There was no wind.
Ronan's mother, Siobhan, was part of the group on the beach.
We watched them go out across the water. It was a lovely, calm evening.
There was no waves at all. It was just like you were just cutting through the water, lovely. So. It was still nice and sunny at that time, and we were saying we better head back because we're going to have food and either a barbecue or anything. So we decided to head back. It suddenly went from calm as anything to, yeah, we were getting hit by waves to the side of us. Jack was the first one to fall in. So we were all laughing as he's trying to get back on, and then as I was laughing, I fell in. And then after a few more times, as we're struggling to get back on our kayaks and we're slowly being pushed out, that's when we started to think, oh, something's going on here, so.
It started to get quite dark now, and I was beginning to get a little bit concerned. Maybe they've been carried out on a current.
My biggest concern would be what my mum's reaction was when I got back. We'd gone out and had a nice day and then almost like ruined it by getting into this situation. You don't want to panic, but yeah, it was quite alarming what was going on. So.
Ronan's cousin, Jack, managed to paddle to shore to raise the alarm, leaving Ronan and Ben drifting out into the Bristol Channel in the dark.
Jack said that they'd been taken out to sea, and we were in such blind panic that they may not come back.
We could see Porlock Weir, where the pubs and stuff were just becoming smaller and smaller as we were getting further out. We were just looking to the cliff, ready for a light to come round, basically like a beacon of hope, basically. And then Ben spotted a light coming over from Wales in the sky. But the helicopter light missed us a few times, and we were like shouting like, we're over here, obviously, but they're obviously never gonna hear us. But then, yeah, when the light finally came on us and we saw the boats coming closer, we're like, yes, this is it, we're going home. It was an amazing feeling to be saved, really. Like,
we're gonna drift down onto him.
I could have hugged them if we were allowed, but obviously COVID protocol, like, couldn't even shake their hands, just had to sit there and just like say thank you and stuff. And then it was almost a thing of just letting them get on and do what they had to do and get us back to shore. My mum was quite upset, she was crying and stuff, and I think I remember her saying like she thought we were dead, and she's been through enough in her lifetime, so I was more upset with myself for putting her through an ordeal like that.
Oh, I think I just grabbed him and, you know, held on to him, and I think that the same with Ben, you know, it was, I think you realise just how lucky you are.
It was lovely to give her a hug, squeeze her tight, and yeah, say that, show her boy's all right. Yeah.
You lucky?
Thank you very much.
You're very hard to find, mate, I tell you. Could you see us looking for you?
Yeah, the whole time, yeah. So we saw you come round the corner, I was at the lifeboat, thank God for that, and then we was hugging the bay, and I was like, oh my God, it's a helicopter as well.
Yeah.
They went, like, the helicopter went right over us.
Could have been a very different story, you know, a local family in Minehead with a different ending have a big effect on a town like Minehead.
Because you were a lot further out than we were told to.
Had the helicopter been on another job, had the helicopter not been available, we wouldn't have found them.
Sorry to bother you tonight. Yeah.
I think my first night out went quite well. It was a big relief to find them and get them ashore safe and well. You feel like you've made a big difference to the the people's lives to their families' lives, and yourself, you feel much more confident in your ability to be on the boat and actually help out. It's a good feeling.
He said it wasn't like this when he set off.
Different world out there, isn't it?
They definitely saved the lives of our children, there is no doubt about it. I think without them, I don't know what we would do.
Three months after his fishing boat was saved by the Peterhead Lifeboat, Jimmy still reflects on the courage that first-time coxswain Patrick and his crew showed that day.
If I met the coxswain, I would shake his hand. If it was in a pub, I would buy him the biggest drink that I could for him, because he did us well. The whole crew did as well, though I should get medals. After it was all finished, he did think about it, but the experience hasn't changed my view of fishing. See, for a change, you do. Since I've been a child, I've been to sea. I used to go out to sea when I was 7-year-old with my grandfather. It's in my blood, just to keep going. Always be a fisherman till they plant me.
Come here, buddy, come here.
Climber Becky was determined that her near-death experience off St David's wouldn't get in the way of an important family event.
Once I'd got to the hospital, I was very keen to get out again. My uncle was getting married and yeah, I didn't want to miss it for anything.
One of the Coast Guard teams had looked after her dog, and he said, oh yeah, Becky came back out about 10 o'clock that night and collected her dog. She was going off to a wedding the next day. I genuinely was like gobsmacked. I'd never seen somebody look so unwell. You know, I just would have thought she'd have been in hospital for like 3 or 4 days.
I arrived at the wedding with my cuts on my chest area and my face, and I was still very sore, but I was very proud of my uncle and very grateful to the lifeboat crew, because if they were much later, I probably wouldn't have survived.
And as for the young sheep that fell from the cliffs near Clandudno,
a few weeks later, the farmer had been down and he told us that he was absolutely fine running around in the field, so.
Hopefully he's springing around in the field in Clandudno somewhere. Hopefully he's not covered in mint sauce right now.
That's where he went down, Steve, that's where he went down.
I thought that this guy was dead.
What surprised me is the fact that the casualty wasn't moving. He was stuck in one position.
I can't begin to imagine what the diver must have felt when that boy dragged him up to the surface from 31 metres.